We handled a case, my law firm, myself, my associate Jonathan Sneed, and my wife Jennifer Stogner, the three of us handled a case that arose out of a drowning death that occurred in 2020 during the height of COVID. And this particular little boy was 4.5 years old. He was at home with his mother. The father was asleep, who worked night security, so he sleeps during the day. He's asleep in the bedroom. His mother was very ill that morning, was in the bathroom, and the little boy was able to sneak out of the apartment complex. And this little boy was able to walk straight to the swimming pool, which had a perimeter fence, had a perfect, statutorily almost perfect perimeter fence and gate system. This particular gate system was good because it had a code that you had to enter to turn the handle, and you had to be at least a certain height to reach the latch that was at the top. So it was really a double security system on this gate. You had to know the code, and you had to be tall enough to pull the latch, and that was the only way you could gain access. However, on this particular day, the little boy was able to walk right up to the gate, open it without the code, without having to lift the latch, because there was a chain that was propping open the gate. So not surprisingly, this 4.5-year-old boy who's attracted to water gets into the swimming pool area. He falls into the swimming pool, and he fights for his life for about 3 minutes. And one of the maintenance men at the pool complex ultimately dives in, retrieves him after he floated for about 20 minutes. And CPR efforts were unsuccessful. And ultimately that little boy died. How could this have happened? We learned that the chains had actually been hanging there for at least 5 years. We learned that it was pretty common for vendors, maintenance men, tenants that lived there to use that chain to prop open the gate or to keep it from closing, so that anybody who would come after them could simply walk in without the code. We learned that the apartment complex knew about these chains being there, knew about them being used for this purpose, and did nothing. Didn't remove the chains until after this little boy drowned. We were able to establish that this was essentially gross negligence, that the apartment complex manager knew when she would see those chains propping the gate open that there was a high risk of death to a child, and yet she didn't do anything to remove them. The defendants, of course, blamed them, saying, well, it's their fault. I've got a father who's upstairs asleep who works nights. I've got a mom who's in the restroom. But they blame them. So it's all their fault. There's no way this kid should have gotten out. But the bottom line is, the statutes, had they been followed, that require pool safety on the perimeter fencing and the gates, had those statutes been followed, it would have been impossible for that child to get into the pool and drown that day. And ultimately, the trial court agreed with us and dismissed all of their claims, all of the defendants' claims of contributory negligence against mom and dad. Because their own expert, defendant's own expert, had to admit and agree that while that kid, when he gets out of the apartment complex unsupervised, he faces a whole host of risks, being maybe abduction, maybe getting hit by a car in the parking lot, but drowning is not one of them. Had the apartment complex, the management company, followed the statutes and the codes, which contemplate a kid will get there unsupervised. The codes are written for that scenario. Had the codes been followed, this kid would be with us today. Ultimately, we settled that case for $18 million total amongst all the defendants for my two clients who lost their child. I can assure you this, we know from verdict search, they tell us it's the largest reported settlement in the United States for a drowning of a single person, a child. And while 18 million, may win some awards or break some records, I can assure you from getting to know these parents that they would trade every single penny of it to have their little boy back.